Okay, I know that once a test is done, you don't always want to hear about it. So you have the choice of whether you watch this video or not. If you do, let me see if I can give you some kind of broad overviews on the various answers and the things that I was looking for. Um, do be aware, as I said in the email, that uh, I have put specific comments to each answer, both on the time portion and on the case, uh, within stuff that's posted on Blackboard. Hopefully, you're able to find those and see any specific things. And always feel free to holler if you've got some questions as to what was going on your exam, and or if you're unsure of why I marked something the way I did. Um, so, with that said, here we go. On the time portion of the test, uh, just FYI, most people took between 75 and 90 minutes. And of the question options, 7 people answered number one on the environment. You see that 10 out of 11, almost everybody answered number two on human resources, and 5 people answered number three. So there did appear to be some choice. Yeah, most everybody answered the second one, but it kind of chose between the first and the third for the other one they were going to do. So, briefly, what was I kind of looking for? What were the common mistakes that people made? Well, on number one on the environment, uh, biggest issue was that when you kind of got to the end of it, you didn't really offer an explanation for the differences between food services making big profits on average and airlines making no profits on average. Um, that is, you kind of worked through the 5 forces. You often told me some key success factors, but kind of at the end of it, you didn't say what the 5 forces tell us. Why was there this real big difference between them? And it would have been okay if you had said, look, I've run through the 5 forces, I've looked at the key success factors. I can't really explain. I don't know why there is this difference. Um, but you needed to address that. The question was explicitly asking, um, use the framework to explain why performance has been high in food service and not in airline. So, um, on that note, if I'm kind of looking at it, I see a few things you could have played with. Both industries, switching costs are low, but a big difference to me is that in airlines, it is hard to differentiate. People go from the same, all the airlines fly essentially from the same airports to the same airports. Yeah, there may be some differences as to whether you can fly direct on one airline versus another. But in many cases, the options, the time it's going to take, all of that are about the same. And really, once you get on the airplane, while they make efforts to offer differences in service, the reality is once you're in the plane, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference whether you are on American or United or Delta or whatever it is. So, if there is very little differentiation, then people are oftentimes going to buy on price. That's just kind of a reality. And if they're going to buy on price, then we tend to compete on price, which tends to compete away any profitability. You've also got some very high fixed costs in the airline industry. Uh, at least maybe sunk might be a better term. Once a plane's going in the air, it costs them pretty much the same whether it's 25% full or 98% full. So they got to put rears in seats. That's going to drop price. That's a real challenge for them. As well, probably the cost to the customer. Uh, yeah, I can switch between fast food places, but I'm not really going to quibble over an extra quarter here or 50 cents there when I'm spending $5 or $10. I am going to quibble over $100, $200, $300 when I'm spending 300 to 5, 6, $700 on on a flight. I think those kinds of things might play into it. But again, bottom line was you needed to at least say, here is what really makes the difference and make a clear case. Or, hey, I have applied the 5 forces and I can't really tell what the difference is. You needed to address that notion. Okay, enough on that. On the human resources one, on number 2, biggest issue there was the appropriating value and earning above normal returns. I don't quibble at all that people are important, that without the people you don't really have a company in most cases. I got all that. But can companies really use them to gain a competitive advantage and earn above normal returns? It comes down to a question of appropriating the value that the people create. And so it was good if you at least mentioned some of the things that were addressed in the lesson on resources and capabilities and the challenge that some companies face. And in certain areas, in financial advising, some of those, the individuals may be really important, but they get huge salaries, big bonuses. They are individually often able to appropriate the value, and the company may not earn above normal returns from that. The bigger advantage appears to come when you utilize those people in a broader system where it's not any given individual, it is the package, it is the culture, it is the structure, it is the management and all of that gets the most out of people. And it's not that you don't pay them well or treat them well, but it's that any given one can be pulled out and another one put in, assuming comparable general skills, and then the company is able to benefit from that. So something to think about there. Then on Acme and Omega, I thought, well, the least number of people answered, I thought that one was the most straightforward. All right, that if you're looking at Acme, they're kind of trying to just make the same things they've been making, but sell them into other industries. So something like a functional structure probably works, mostly the same capabilities, but maybe some new ones in refining that component, and maybe in marketing to reach out to companies in other industries that can now utilize it. Omega, on the other hand, who's looking to diversify and start offering products themselves into new industries, it's probably going to have to go to something like the easiest would probably be a divisional structure. Also saw a case made for a matrix. Okay, maybe saw a case made for a network. I think that's kind of interesting. But they're going to have to move out beyond the traditional functional structure if they're going to have products in other areas. They're also going to have to develop new capabilities, R&D, marketing, especially market research, to figure out what they're doing. So those were the kinds of things I was looking for you to talk about there. Now, when we shift over to the essay or the case portion of the exam, that was a little different. Interesting. Read a variety of interesting things. People seem to think about stuff. Biggest issue, and this is a pretty common one I've seen over the years, was not using strategy to package the answers. All right, and we talk about fit, we talk about aligning all the different pieces, and strategy is kind of the linking pin and all of that. I tried to walk you through that in the questions, but people tended to wander a little bit. You would jump to specific actions rather than looking at those in this broader context of strategy. Excuse me, and I guess it really goes back to that notion from the first lesson on what strategy is. All right. We introduced this notion of strategy. Remember, we looked at Porter's statements on it, the books, mine, and the consensus and the discussion seemed to be that they all kind of coalesced. And what you see here is what I had defined strategy as for our purposes. So where is a firm competing and how is a firm competing? I think in some of the notes I might have said what and how, but same idea. Um, so the where or the what addresses the particular product and market focus of a business. What's it selling? To whom is it trying to sell? And you needed to identify that kind of up front with a marina. Uh, do they know who they're selling to? Do they know uh, what they are selling? Is it boats? Is it the marina experience? Is it all of the various pieces? Um, which of those things? People kind of made lists, but never brought it back into that, or many of you didn't bring it back into that context. Um, and then the how is really important. What's the competitive advantage at the end of the day? What are you trying to, how are you trying to set yourself apart? As it says here, kind of answering the question, why should someone purchase our product or service rather than buying from another company? So if you kind of take that as this packaging for all of it, that should have kind of run through everything that you were doing. In the first question part of it, the first bullet point, whatever you want to call it, the structure of the report, but then kind of running all the way through. When you're looking at performance, when you're looking at the industry, when you're looking at resources and capabilities, all are kind of in the backdrop of trying to assess them, the fit in number 5. So does the marina have a strategy? If so, what is it? Where are they uh, trying to compete? What are they selling to? Who are they trying to sell it? How are they trying to compete? And does that fit with what you learned about the environment? Does that fit with the resources and capabilities they have? Uh, and tie it back to performance. It appears it doesn't because they're not performing well. So what's off? All right, are they offering the wrong things to the environment? Are they competing in the wrong way for the environment? Or do they not have the capabilities to support what they're trying to do? I'll buy any of those options. I'll buy that, hey, they don't really know what they're trying to do. So they need one, but you need to put it in that context. Um, so that then when you go to number 6, the alterations to strategy, again, you're now talking about where is the firm going to compete? How is the firm going to compete? You should not, repeat, not be jumping ahead here to build more docks, to cut this cost, get rid of the buoys, whatever it might be, because you can't decide those things until you have set up the strategy. So given what you've seen about the fit or misfit, um, given what you've seen about the industry, about their resources, you got to specify then in number 6 uh, their strategy. What do you think it ought to be? Where and how? Then you can go on in number 7 to specific actions. Should they add docks? Should they do more with selling boats less? Should they keep the buoys, get rid of them? Should they beef up the snack bar, get rid of it? Any of those kinds of things. But they are now being answered in this context of the strategy. They're being done because they help the firm develop the how it's going to compete. They're being done because they are part of the new where. They are in a context, not just a variety of things that the firm could do, but the things that the firm should and must do to support its strategy. Oh, kind of hope that helps. One just kind of comment in passing on performance. Uh, Everybody noticed the company's losing money. What almost everybody missed, though, was that they're actually turning a small operating profit. Not a lot, but in both years there is an operating profit. But then when they take off depreciation, and particularly when they take off interest expense, um, they're now not making any money. So, not sure exactly what that tells us, but maybe that they're not all that far off, and maybe that they need to deal with their financing to figure out how to reduce their debt. It was not really an area anybody went to, but one place you could have gone. So, hope all that is helpful. Hope all that explains a little bit. Again, look at your own exams, both the time portion and the case. Look at my comments on them, and then holler back if you got questions on any of them.